Alright guys, well about 9 a.m. on Saturday morning, February the 15th, Elder Scrolls Online decided that they wanted to officially drop their NDA. So we've got a chance to finally share some thoughts and opinions on the game. I've had to keep quiet due to NDA. Even with Game Breaker, we weren't included in the media kind of press release where everybody got to show 15 minutes worth of footage and do lots of editorials talking about the game. And several of those have come out mediocre at best and negative at worst. So I just kind of want to offer maybe some counterpoints to some of that and just share my thoughts and opinions on the game, which is a lot more positive, I think, than a lot of things that have been out there previously. So we're going to talk about the Elder Scrolls Online and just some of my thoughts and opinions on the game. Now, I do want to say this right from the very beginning. This video is going to be more about me talking and sharing thoughts and opinions on the game. The gameplay footage that I've got recorded and I'm showing in the video is by no means any sort of indication of what the gameplay is like. Like I said, during the last beta, I was still under NDA. I was not in any form or fashion part of the groups that were able to record footage and talk about things. So I was just recording a little bit of footage here and there just to have for future reference, intending just to like cut little short highlights out of it or something, and not really intending to show it as overall gameplay footage. So of course, now that the NDA is lifted, there is not currently a beta happening, so I can't necessarily go in and record different footage and new footage that sort of reflects the things I want to talk about. So going in, this footage, it's not, some of it's not very exciting gameplay. I didn't go in and specifically look for things that I wanted to talk about. Like I said, I was just trying to get some things here and there for just little short snippets here and there of some things to do in the future. But since I don't have the ability to go in and record any new footage, we're just going to throw some of that up there just so there's something in the background while this plays. So you're not going to see, for example, if I'm talking about crafting, I think I have a few shots of crafting, but I don't have an extensive sort of video set up for the crafting. So this video is just sort of an overall thoughts on kind of where the game is, sort of what people have been saying about it, and where I hope it might go in the future. And later on, we will have some official first look videos and some gameplay where I record footage that's more specific to whatever I'm talking about at the time. Now, when it comes to some of the reviews and things that are out there that have been out since last Friday, I have to disagree with some of the overall thoughts on the game that came out with some of these negative reviews, but at the same time, I can't entirely say that the opinions that were put out there by these writers and video creators in some instances were completely wrong. What they were given was an opportunity to jump in and play the game, and for a lot of them it seems like this was the first time they ever got to play the game, because several of them, in full disclosure, said, hey, I only got up to level 5 or so. And there were a few here and there that got higher level than that, but a lot of the really more negative ones and the ones that really said, I didn't really care a lot for this game. It was kind of linear and boring and whatnot, and all the things they said that we'll address here in a few minutes. Like I said, they in full disclosure, at the end of the article, they were like, here, we got to level 5. That's as far as we got. And this is an MMO. It has 50 levels that you can progress through before you reach what most games refer to as the end game or elder game or whatever your particular game happens to call it. So, as you can tell, they've reached level 5 out of 50 level game. They've seen very little of the game. That being said, the beginning areas are indeed quite linear. So, as I said at the beginning, I can't say that they are completely wrong in what they said about what they did see. The problem is that they started making assertions that the entire game was going to play this way just by the couple of hours that they saw. Now, as you can probably tell by the way I'm talking about it, I disagree with the fact that the entire game is linear and there's no open world exploration to be found. As a matter of fact, once you get into probably, I think it's actually technically the 3rd zone in beta, which is the first giant open map area you get into, depending on which faction you are, it's different areas of the map, you actually gain quite a bit of freedom to sort of explore and do the quests in the order you want to do them. There are no quest hubs. You don't just walk up to a town. There's tons and tons of quests. You go complete the quest, come back to the quest hub. There are towns with NPCs that give you quests, don't get me wrong. and then you go out to do these quests. But as you do so, you explore the world, and there's an area of the map you haven't been to yet. You want to head over there and see what's there, and then more little icons will start showing up on your map that you can pull up, and you want to head over to those icons, and there are typically things to see, things to do, other NPCs you're going to run into that'll be like, help me, you know, something's going on. But it's not just go to town A, go kill monster A, return to town A, proceed to town B. It is not like that. There are a couple of quests here and there that follow that formula, but there's a lot more exploration and seeking areas you haven't been to before in this game than people are giving it credit for. And the people who say, well, you know, I was in this town and I had to run all the way across the map to kill this monster and all the way back, and then I didn't know what to do. There was nothing else to do. You hate to just say the old gaming trope, you're doing it wrong, but the fact is they're doing it wrong. Along the way, if you don't just follow the road, you go off the beaten path a little bit. And there are tons of quests and caves and ruins and castles and monsters and dark anchors falling from the sky. There are quite a few things out there to do, to explore and find, but you have to go out there and explore and find them. Now, that may not be for everybody. Maybe you like the old quest hub and go here and get all your quests and then just go do them and then come back, and then that quest hub might send you right back to the same area. But this game doesn't function like that. And if you're trying to play it like that, you're not going to get everything that this game has to offer out of its questing system. Now let's go back and talk about the super linear starting areas that everybody's kind of pooping on. And like I said, the very first time I ran through it, I was kind of busy oohing and ahhing at some of the things I was seeing. But then as I go back through on multiple characters, I can see why people have complaints or are saying some pretty negative things about the beginning areas, which is what a lot of these folks saying negative things have seen. And a lot of people can't get past that initial area and it's sort of linear boringness to get into the meat of the game and see what the game's really all about. And as I said, the people who are saying that the beginning is linear and even want to call it boring, that, you know, that's their opinion. And I can't say that they're completely wrong. And it's not their fault that the game is like that in the beginning. That falls on the developers at ZeniMax. They should be making a more concerted effort to make the Elder Scrolls Online grab you and hook you and pull you in and make you not want to leave within the first even 5 minutes. You know, forget the ones who put a couple of hours in and it wasn't for them and they only got to level 5. Within the first few minutes of the game, it should be hooking the people and making them want to play. And it doesn't do that, and that's sort of a pervasive problem throughout the MMO marketplace right now. There are very few MMOs out there that put that sort of experience right up front in their game and are like, boom, have this epic boss battle. And even if it's just an illusion, and you know that it's, you know, it's a tutorial zone, and you're going to be able to beat the guy, and it's not going to kill you. It's still awesome to have this big epic conflict at the very beginning and to be able to just encounter more than just running through this super linear cave system and dungeon or whatever Cold Harbor is supposed to be. A mixture of the both, I guess. And just running through it, and that's all you can do. And then really when you come right out of that, the first little island you do isn't really full of the super exploration and to be able to go and find things like what I talked about the game really has quite a bit of later on. That first little area you get when you come out of Cold Harbor, it's pretty much pick up this quest, go do it. There'll probably be a thing or two out there to find along the way, but these are small little areas, and it doesn't have room for just a ton of the exploration type quests and be able to find things to do and really go out and explore the world and see unique things. And again, that's a failing on the part of the developers and on the part of the game to have that sort of experience up front. And that's what's going to be what the majority of players see and make an assumption of what your game is going to be like. That's a mistake that a lot of MMOs make, and Elder Scrolls unfortunately does kind of fall into that, and it does make that mistake. That being said, I know you hear this a lot when it comes to MMOs. The game's different. At level 8, 9, 10 to 15, definitely the game really starts to open up. and sort of change and really get you out into the world exploring, and things become more unique and interesting, and you find more things, and there's more things to do, and you're deeper into the crafting system, and you're deeper into your skill tree, so you've got more of a specialized build of something you really want to play. And of course, the further you get in the skill tree, the more you're going to be able to create the character that you really want to play. And a lot of MMOs that I don't particularly have fun in, that's part of the problem. None of the classes really speak to me and really just overall grab me and make me want to play. With the Elder Scrolls Online, you can do that, but unfortunately you do have to put some time into it to get far enough into the skill tree sometimes to create what you want to be able to play, and that's really going to grab you and hold you. So essentially right now, in my opinion, the biggest problem that Elder Scrolls Online has is that it doesn't present what the game actually is up front, and you sort of get a different look at the game with this very linear sort of starting tutorial zone, and then the very first area you get out into is just kind of small and doesn't really present a lot of things to go out and explore and see, and things that just kind of, even though it's not really random, make it feel random. Like the first time you stumble upon it, you're like, oh, I didn't know this was here. And it just doesn't show a lot of that into the beginning. And honestly, you have to be several hours in to see some of the things I was talking about as far as the openness and the exploration and the feeling like you really need to go out and explore the world and find your adventure. Unfortunately, it's just, it's buried quite a few hours into the gameplay. I probably played... over the past weekend, I probably played 20 something hours of beta. And it's not that it took me 20 hours of beta to get to the good stuff, but it probably was a good 12 hours before I really started getting into what I consider the best aspects of the game. When I got high enough level to have a few skill points spent here and there to be able to kind of create custom builds. In my time frame, I say it took me 12 hours. I'm not a big power leveler. Like I'm not just rummaging through all this stuff and just tearing through it just as fast as possible to try to get to end level. I was stopping and looking at the crafting system and going out and collecting resources now and then if I was a few short to be able to craft something new. But it was, even for a power leveler, you're going to have several hours into the game before you really start seeing what a lot of us who like the game see that we enjoy so much about it. Now the next two things I want to talk about are the visuals, the graphics in the game, and the combat. And the reason I'm going to kind of talk about those together is because that they're going to be looked at differently by different players. And that's because this game, with the IP of the game and the genre of game that they're actually trying to make, they've put themselves in a weird position where they're going to get compared to both MMOs that exist out in the genre already and the single-player RPG games, the Elder Scrolls franchise of games. And they kind of run a risk here. I mean, either they're going to find MMO aspects and single-player RPG aspects and bring them together and make fans of both happy, or they're going to bring in aspects of both and it's not going to make anybody happy. And it's sort of a weird spot to be in for a game like that, because you've got so many hardcore Skyrim fans that come in and they look at the visuals and they say, man, this looks like crap compared to Skyrim. This looks like a generic low-budget Skyrim. On the other hand, you've got MMO players who come in, and depending on which game you play, I mean, there are some gorgeous games out there, but as far as an MMO is concerned, it's not a bad-looking game at all. As a matter of fact, I consider it quite beautiful. I enjoy the visuals from an MMO aspect quite a bit. Now, does that mean that I'm saying, oh, it's on the level of Skyrim? No, not at all. For an MMO, and I look at it, I'm coming at this game basically more as an MMO player, I guess. So you're going to hear my perspective come through. It's a good looking game for an MMO, for having all the people that are out there. The character models have quite a bit of detail in them. The world itself, I mean, you can get right up on stuff and it's not going to be super high res textured or anything like that. But I mean, MMOs can't be that because they're trying to get so much happening on a screen at a time. Even if you're kind of running around playing the game by yourself, eventually you're going to run into areas that are full of other people and lots of things going on, and the game engine has to be able to handle that. So it's not going to be Skyrim. but at the same time, it can't just flat out be MMO, or you're going to lose your Skyrim audience. So visually, in my opinion, I think for an MMO, the game looks fine. It's actually quite nice looking. Now, as far as the combat is concerned, there's been some negative stuff out there about that too. And here again, I can't 100% come to the defense of the combat, but I do want to say this. For those who say, well, the combat feels kind of floaty and not weighted, and I don't really feel the combat a whole lot. My big question is, have you played an Elder Scrolls game? I mean, seriously, across the entire single-player franchise, combat has got to be the weakest link in the entire Elder Scrolls franchise history. Every game that's ever been made, combat has always been floaty, not super weighted. Yes, you can argue that at least, my enemy bleeds when I hit it, but at the same time, you get back into sort of the visuals of an MMO. It's like there's only so many pixels that can go on a screen, depending on how many players you've got on the screen. So there are definitely things that you cannot do in an MMO that you can do in a single-player RPG. And my biggest argument is that is why we do not have multiplayer Skyrim. There's not a mod or a future exactly like Skyrim game coming out with a multiplayer option, because there are things in that single player RPG that just flat out will not work in a multiplayer atmosphere. That's why we're getting this MMO. That's why certain things in MMOs are done the way they are. Yeah, sometimes it's easy to look at something and be like, there was a better way to do this. But by and large, there are reasons things are done in MMOs, and it's because of the way there are multiple people, tons of people playing. You have to get lots of people on screen at a time. Everybody has to be able to do these quests and interact with things, and you can change the world through phasing and things like that. But another complaint with the game, and I'm going to have to agree with this one a little bit, is the phasing in this game, in Elder Scrolls Online. There's quite a bit of it. If you complete a series of quests, things are going to change for you. Certain roaming NPC enemies may not be visible to you anymore. So if you've got a friend coming in behind you that, for whatever reason, got a little bit behind you, and you need to help them do this quest, you can't do it because you don't even see the enemies that he needs to kill to be able to complete the quest, which can be a pain in the ass if you're trying to play with friends who you aren't just like, okay, these are our characters we're going to play with. We're only going to play these characters when we're playing together. If we're not playing together, we're playing something else. Because if one of you gets a few steps ahead, you may find yourself in situations where you're not able to help them come along, and you're not seeing the same things, and you're not able to do the same things. But I got off on a little bit of a tangent there. Back to combat and kind of the floatiness of it. I will have to agree, yes, especially melee combat, it can be a little odd, and you don't really... My biggest complaint is, like, if I'm trying to block an ability, there's no feedback whatsoever that tells me whether I was successful or failed to block whatever it is that was coming in towards me. It just kind of happens, and you just kind of have to watch your health bar. If it doesn't move a lot, then you probably blocked it. If it does move a lot, you probably didn't get your block up in time. Another complaint that Game Breaker producer Dom brought up that it hadn't really bothered me up until that point, but I can definitely see where he's coming from. Is there again, particularly in melee combat, is there's no collision between you and your enemy NPC. You can literally just be in combat with them and walk right through them. And after he said that, I got to thinking, I was like, you're right. There was a couple of times where it was a little annoying to me, where like I was running a Dragon Knight Nord, and I was using a two-handed weapon, so I had a charge ability, and I would charge in, and my character would literally land on top, like right in the middle of the enemy NPC, and I couldn't get any attacks off. None of my attacks would make contact, so I would have to literally back up to get back outside of the NPC so that my sword was making contact again. So yeah, I can understand that's a little annoying. Like I said, for me, it's just not something that bothered me all that much. For some people, I can understand it would be a big deal. And I've heard other people say that, if you don't like all that, if you want to go to ranged combat with like a staff and a sorcerer or something like that, that actually the combat, you don't get a lot of that, obviously, because you're trying not to stand on top of things. But maybe something like that should be addressed. I wouldn't say that I would be completely upset if they added collision with enemy NPCs, but it's just not something that's just gotten me to the point where that's all I can think about. I'm just like, I clipped into the enemy, yada, yada, yada. But there again, I can understand why some people would have complaints with it. For me, and here again, obviously, everything I'm spouting off here, my opinion, you feel free to completely disagree, and I know a lot of people do. I actually like the combat in Elder Scrolls Online better than the Elder Scrolls franchise, better than Skyrim. And I'm going to keep saying Skyrim because that's what most people, that's the newest game, that's the one most people are familiar with. So whenever I reference Skyrim, I'm sort of making generalizations about the Elder Scrolls franchise. But I enjoy Elder Scrolls Online combat more than Skyrim, and let me tell you why. It's not the anything to do with floatiness or weighted combat or anything like that. When it comes to that, probably Skyrim does do it a little bit better. Although, like I said earlier, I don't think combat in any Elder Scrolls game has ever been all that great. What makes it awesome for me is the small action bar, and I'm a fan of the kind of the way the MMOs are doing it nowadays, where you get a small action bar, a handful of abilities, and you've got lots of abilities to choose from, but you can only have so many equipped at a time. I'm a huge fan of the way that MMOs are evolving into that. For me, that makes the combat way more exciting than Skyrim, and having to go to a quick menu or using your hotkey or whatever to switch, something out, like to get your sword out of your right hand, to add a spell, to be able to use it. And either way, even though you can switch them out somewhat, quickly, you've always still got the two things. You've always got two things going at once. I guess it's the MMO player coming out in me there again. I like having the small action bar. It gives me more options, more things I can do. It's not just, left clicking until everything dies and right clicking to block things now and then. It's doing that, getting the action combat out of it, plus having all these other abilities that can have just at an instant without having to pause the game and go into a menu and look for them, and just have them and boom, boom, boom. Now, of course, I don't have access to instantly use all of them that I have completely like in Skyrim, where you can go into the pause menu and pull up any spell you want and have it ready to go at a moment's notice. But as far as real time frame, it takes longer to do that than just having it on the action bar and going, even though in-game time, of course, it's instantly when you're playing Skyrim.
Of course, I forgot. You did not conceive this plan.
So I'm a fan of having an action bar that's got some abilities and the ability to put points and develop different abilities any way I want to. I think once you get them ranked up to certain abilities, certain levels, most abilities have the ability to morph and add a second unique effect to them and things like that. And then you're just kind of building your deck at the bottom out of all these abilities that you can eventually have. You have to choose which ones you're going to go with. And you can swap out, and eventually, like I think at level 15, you get the ability to swap weapons. You can have 2 weapon sets set up, which is going to give you 2 different action bar setups. So you can swap in between those and have 2 already set up ready to go. I'm just a fan of that. I like the way that works. I like the freedom that it gives me to sort of play the way I want to and kind of do the things I want to do. All right, so those are just some of my initial thoughts and probably for the most part some of my reactions to some of the things that have been put out there thus far. This, obviously, there's a lot more to this game than what we just talked about in these few minutes here, and there's a lot more to talk about and kind of show off. So there are going to be more detailed videos coming where we kind of delve more specifically into things and really get into like the combat or the skill system or the crafting system, which, by the way, is spectacular in this game and is actually useful as you play the game. Gasp, I know, trust me. I was really excited to see that you can actually create useful, nice top-tier items through the crafting system as you level, not just this. There's this you just leveled it up just for the hell of it, and then at the end of the game, well, you can probably make this one really good item to get you started in the end game or whatever. Like so many MMOs do it. You guys know, you've played. There are some out there that do a good job with the crafting system, but Elder Scrolls is one of those. I'm excited with what I've seen so far out of the crafting system. Now, obviously, level 15 is as high as I've really gotten. Full disclosure, just like all the folks who said they've only gotten to level 5, I think the beta only went up to 17 anyway. So level 15 is the highest I've seen. So I can't say that I've seen all the way to level 50 with the crafting system, but what I've seen so far looks spectacular, and I just hope that it stays that way throughout the entire game. But like I said, this is going to sort of wrap up this. This is just my initial thoughts. Some things I've been just kind of waiting to get off my chest. And this will probably come out in written form on Game Breaker at some point next week. But I just wanted to just get, like I said, get some things off my chest, some things that I've kind of been holding in. And because of the NDA, I haven't been able to say. And a lot of us who wanted to sort of contradict what some of these reviews were saying, we didn't have the opportunity to do so because we were restricted under the NDA, and those of us who enjoy the game and being in the beta did not want to risk losing that beta access. Now we don't have to worry about that. We can say what we want. So you're going to start seeing a lot more stuff come out from a lot of people, obviously, on Elder Scrolls Online. You're going to hear more negative stuff. Obviously, more people are going to have, now that everybody's talking, there's going to be more negativity. But I've got a feeling you're going to start seeing a lot more positive stuff than what you might expect if your opinion of the game is based upon the reviews that came out through the press embargo lift last weekend during the NDA. If that massively article, some of the PC gamer stuff, and there's some others out there, and I'm not trying to call people out or anything. Your opinion's your opinion. I can't say that your opinion is wrong because it's your opinion, but you're gonna start seeing there's so much more to this game, and there's so much positive things going on with Elder Scrolls Online that there's no way that you're not going to start seeing some good stuff coming out, and not just hardcore fanboy stuff. I don't consider myself a real fanboy for the Elder Scrolls series at all. I enjoyed Skyrim. I've got quite a few hours in Skyrim, but I didn't just live or die Skyrim. So there are going to be hardcore fanboys out there who scream and are mad because people say their game is bad, but you always get that. You guys know that. But you're going to start seeing a lot more positivity. Like I said, there's some good things going on here. The biggest problem right now is that the people who jump in to see it for the first time aren't able to see it. And that's really not going to be good for the game's longevity. Whether it be reviews or players who jump in once open beta comes up and they play the first hour and a half of the game, they're like, what is this crap? This is exactly what the reviews said it was. Yeah, I mean, honestly, it is exactly what the reviews said it was, because that's all they got to see, and the game doesn't do a good job of presenting you a game that it becomes later on. And I'm doing a terrible job of saying what I want to say right now because this is just all off the cuff stuff. But we will definitely be coming back with some more detailed videos, especially when the next beta weekend. They've said there should be another one coming soon. So I'll finally have the opportunity to record some specific footage and talk about some specific things and really take a look at the good and the bad of the combat, the good and the bad of the visuals, the boring linear beginning tutorial zones, and show you, as long as they don't wipe my character, because then I'll take 12 hours to get back into it because I'm slow, show you how the game opens up. And just like the stuff that I find, like caves that you can just walk into and explore. People say that doesn't exist in this game. It does. It's not just completely permeated with them, but they do exist. I've already found a cave where I just walked in. There was no quest to go into it. I finished all the quests in the zone. I walked into the cave. I was like, what is this? There were bad guys. There were chests. There was a sky shard to find. And when I got all the way through that cave and came back out, I just got an achievement that said, you completed this cave. It wasn't a quest. It wasn't anything on rails that said go here. It was just a door that I found. I went in. It was a cave. I explored it. It was fun. At the end of the day, that's really what I want to get across. This game actually is fun if you can get far enough into it to see it, unfortunately, and it shouldn't be that way, but that's the way it is. And if you approach this game in the right way, you can't come at it like it is Skyrim and expect it to be Skyrim. And you can't come at it like World of Warcraft and expect it to be World of Warcraft. It's not really either of those. And like we said earlier, either that's going to make everybody happy or it's not going to make anybody happy. And that's the biggest part that scares me, besides maybe the subscription model, which we'll rant on later on. This has ran long enough. Thank you very much, guys, and we will be back with more Elder Scrolls stuff definitely as the betas continue and we're able to get some more footage and show off some specific things. Thanks, guys.